Aloha. In this video I wanted to share some of my perspectives on the flat earth, globe earth engagement, and the whole atmosphere of flat earth in general. Because I have my own perspectives on the relationship to mainstream, the debates between flat versus globe, some of the bigger flat earth channels, and kind of like overall where I am looking to expand from with the foundation of this flat earth or not globe earth realization. And there's some realizations that I've had in reference to how all of those fit together that I just want to share in this video with people, because I know other people think the same way. So first off, one of the main reasons why I don't really get involved in the debates with people who believe in the heliocentric model is because I don't have to defend anything. Like, I don't have to defend the flat earth, mostly because I've, in a sense, for myself, debunked the globe earth. And that's really where I stand. I'm more anchored in the perspective of having removed the mind control program of the globe model more than I am in the whole flat earth perspective. Since I have removed the perspective of the globe model, it has made the flat model more real to me. It makes more sense, but this reality is more complex than the physical reality and so on and so forth, and it's going to take some time for me to get to that point. But the main point is, I don't have to defend shit. It's the belief systems and the belief pushers who have convinced the world that heliocentrism is a proven fact and is the truth. They are the ones that are on trial. Their word is on trial, not the people questioning their world. So anytime you bring up any kind of counter observation to something like curvature or gravity, you're immediately hit with a response of, well, the earth is too big, you can't see the curve because this and that. Instead of facing the question itself, like instead of observing what we have observed by no longer being subjected to the mind control programs and just seeing what we're doing, like a child, the response is to say, well, I know you are, but what am I? That whole, well, it's just too big. Or like the last video I put out with showing the clouds not moving. I haven't made a video about that because until yesterday or day before yesterday, because there's been so many videos about that stuff, and I've been watching that for the last 2 years because I used to watch those Discovery Channel, National Geographic documentaries, Planet Earth and so on and so forth. I used to watch that stuff like religiously pretty much, and I noticed that the clouds weren't moving, and a lot of these videos that have views over like tens of millions of views with all this dramatic music and all this stuff from NASA, I noticed that the clouds weren't moving. Even that one with the lightning strike where the supposed ISS was going over the Earth at night, and then it turns into the morning, and there's the sun, and they're showing all this lightning, but the clouds aren't moving. So I share a video about the Hurricane Harvey, the supposed ISS footage about the clouds not moving. And the counter response to that video is, well, you're too high to see the clouds move, or There's not enough time to see the clouds move. This is the response. And the whole point that's being made is the clouds do not move at all. The earth should be alive when you see it from that high. Something should move. When you see nothing moving, then you have to question something. But this is how this mind control program works. It has to defend itself. Instead of looking at the points being made, it has to defend itself by generating some other kind of distraction. So when you bring up something like the credibility or lack thereof of NASA and their track record, you're automatically hit with something like, well, why would they lie? Instead of looking at the actual point that you are making, that look, everything that they're putting out is CGI. They have actually said this is CGI. There's so much information that disproves that we went to the moon. There's so much information out there that says they are just making bank off of tax money by selling people Hollywood productions and calling it your reality. All of this information that exists to help people question that reality, when people are locked into that mind control program, they literally cannot look at that. It's kind of like, I didn't even think about this till just now. It's kind of like somebody in an abusive relationship and they come and talk to you about, how they want to get out of that relationship. This is people who are watching flat earth videos, and then they find themselves getting so triggered by flat earth videos, they go into the comment section and try to defend the heliocentric model or NASA by saying all the stuff that I just said in the beginning of this video, just kind of like deflecting from the topic. This is an actual, it's almost like a disease. This Stockholm syndrome is pretty much like a disease. So, like I said, it's like an individual coming to you saying, they're in an abusive relationship, but they love that person so much because of the mind control they've been subjected to over time during that relationship. Their entire world is based upon their abuser. So they will continually defend their abuser. And the more you challenge their abuser, the more you become the bad guy. And they will lash out upon you and make themselves closer to the abuser. That is an individual process that can only be healed by the individual who, there's no one thing that's going to fix that. The individual has to be ready to do that. So that's why I said all of these debates, all of these flat earth videos, they all matter, but because we're putting information out, we're helping people see a different perspective that allows them to have something, a platform to stand on, so they can see themselves, so they can see the relationship that they have with the government, with NASA, with these mind controllers, with the fiat currency system, with humanity. There's a platform being placed there so people can see themselves. But at the same time, people will still only be seeing themselves with their own eyes. And their eyes are based upon their own experience, from childhood to their relationship to their parents, to their relationship to the education system, to their relationship to their so-called careers, successful careers, their relationship to their peers. Whatever it is, people can't let go. A lot of people won't look into this stuff because it's so taboo to look into flat earth that it hurts to to be like, oh, well, I might lose my friends if I keep looking at this. So people know that subconsciously, so they will actually stop themselves. I've actually heard people say this, that they can't look at that because they know something is real there. And this is from people who are close to me too, because they know I'm not crazy, I'm not stupid. I have some intelligence there. So if I am speaking with conviction about something as extreme as flat earth, they know I have some kind of foundation to stand on. So they will say, well, I'm not ready for that. I know some other people have interacted with people like that, because a lot of people who are still real on many kind of levels, they know that little subconscious whisper in their ear that says, well, maybe there's some other things that you need to look into before you start going that far, before you start pushing that story into your reality. So I need to do this, and this. I need to get some things in order before I start to open up to that. It's kind of like people who want to protest, like back in the Occupy time frame. People were the same way. People knew what we were talking about and what we were doing when we were making an entire community on the city hall. That's a huge statement. Standing up in front of all of the police officers all over the Bay Area. We had police officers from south of San Jose all the way up to north of Sacramento converging on Oakland. Hundreds and hundreds of police officers and highway patrolmen and sheriffs all coming out, converging on Occupy Oakland to shut that down. That's a very powerful statement that was happening, which is why it shockwaved across the world, into Egypt the next day when they were in solidarity with us. That was like a huge statement. So when I would tell people that at that time, after because Occupy San Francisco jumped off first, when I would tell people, yeah, I'm going out to Occupy SF, we're just gonna pass out some flyers that I made, or yell with a megaphone in front of the Bank of America or the Federal Reserve and just, kind of like trigger people. Those are kind of like these flat earth videos today. It's like every little thing counts, but at the same time, every individual is on their own clock. Every individual is in their own journey in their own time. And they are the ones who will decide whether or not they're going to look into this information or not. So there were a lot of people that would come up to me in suits, in $500 shoes, and whisper, pull me to the side and be like, you know what, man, thank you for doing what. And it's almost breaking me down right now because I'm remembering how many times it's happened. I had people come up to me when I was out there, yelling on the megaphone, and just sit there and stare at me and listen for like 10 minutes while they were on their lunch break, and then walk up to me and be like, man, I hear what you're saying. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I've been in this banking industry for 20 something years, and I've been seeing this. I've been hearing this. I've been doing, but I got a family. I got this. I got that. There's nothing. I'm just thankful that you're out there, and that broke me down back then. It's even breaking me down right now. I'm trying to not break my voice right now, but this is the conundrum that people are caught up in. And there are people out there. See, that's an individual who knows, what's going on, but has chosen, for whatever reason, because not everybody is in line to be, speaking about this information, but they know at their heart, and that's where it really matters. People have broken through that heart barrier to get to their truth, and then over time they will shift and change based upon their own experience. But a lot of people, like 6-7 kids, they got to provide, send their kids to school, get food, whatever it is, they got to do this. But what really matters is what's in their heart. Like, what are they feeling? Like, all these people who are like trolling, if they're real people, They're trolling like flat earth videos. They're speaking with their ego mind, like their synthetic ego mind. It's not even their brain. It's kind of like that abusive relationship where that man or woman is defending getting the shit kicked out of them by their so-called lover, and then, oh, he only hits me because he loves me, or she only hits me because she loves me. Like that whole mentality. That's what's happening when people are commenting on here. They are not speaking with their heart. They're not even speaking with their own mind. They are speaking with the psychological program that has been downloaded to them over many years of conditioning, through many years of programming that comes from every level. It comes from the heart. It comes from the mind. It comes from the soul. It comes from the peers. It comes from the conviction of these magicians who have been in power, who empower themselves by the fiat currency system. And they say, well, you know, I'm in control. I'm in power. Shut your mouth. Shut your damn mouth. We believe. We not only believe, but we know the earth is a globe. You want your proof? Here's gravity. I'm dropping a damn microphone. There's your gravity. Shut your damn mouth and go back to work. That's what kind of people these are. These are abusive, arrogant, ignorant ass people who are trying to protect their kingdom. They're trying to protect a system that keeps them on that pedestal, that keeps them on that throne. And for people who are followers of that crown, of that throne, they will defend that throne more than the actual king has to, and king or queen. And they don't even have to defend it over so much time. They just they just let the people do it. So that's what's happening right now with the crown of heliocentrism and the crown of the globe model that is conditioned into your subconscious, unconscious, and conscious reality every day with, you know, the weatherman on the local news and the stories on the mainstream media in Hollywood, with their production studios like Universal Studios, Globe Model Programming, Disney, all these programs. These days, YouTube, Discovery Channel, all this other stuff, it's conditioning us and conditioning our children to where we do not, we have nothing else to stand on. There's nothing else. We don't have a reality anymore. And that's what's so important. And just like in relationships, it's good to be, there's some, you know, like, you know, some people who can't be outside of a relationship. Like they're these serial daters or serial relationship people that they constantly need to be in a relationship because they're uncomfortable being alone. Or another thing is they're uncomfortable being seen being alone. That's the same thing that's going on with flat earth. You're alone pretty much. You're on your own when you step out into speaking about flat earth. Just like that banker guy that came up to me while I was yelling. He's been in the business for 20-something years. If he starts speaking about the fiat currency system and the way it's designed, from being in the system, from being a banker, he's instantaneously destroying his entire world. And it's not just his world. His world is the foundation for his children. The food, the water, the clothing, the shelter, the education, the potential, their friends. Like everything is resting on this. That's why I said in mainly all of my other videos, this is the real linchpin. This is the cornerstone. The cornerstone to flat earth is really going into the human story, because that will tap into the heartstrings of what's really going on. playing the checker game of flat versus globe and only talking about, the science of flat earth, that's linear. It's extremely linear. And it's a very, in comparison to the nonlinear, it's a shallow way to share some of this information to people. You have to hit them in their heart. You have to hit them in the space that that will last forever. And that is the reality of the human experience. That's the reality of the power that these so-called powers that be have generated by lying for so long. So when you talk about NASA, like when I talk about NASA, I'm not really concerned too much about the CGI and all that other stuff. That's fine. I mean, that's part of it. But the main thing that I'm focusing on when I speak about NASA is, they get $50 million a day, $19 billion a year. $50 million a day. That comes out to something like $350 million a week. You know how much money, how many things can be done with $350 million a week? If the people were in charge of that movement, if the people were, we could build so many kind of like gardens. We can build all kinds of structures for the homeless. We could build all kinds of farmers markets and get all kinds of things. $350 million a week. Just imagine if each week that $350 million went to a different city, like a big city. Like 350 million went. Next week it's going to Oakland. Next week it's going to Chicago. Next week it's going to Detroit. Next week it's going to Miami. $350 million a week. And then during that week, the city, the people of the city do something. And each time they build upon whatever it is that they're doing, whatever the other state did. And then it just gets smarter and smarter and smarter. Mind you, this is only NASA money that I'm talking about. This doesn't even go into the military industrial complex money that's being made right now off of tax dollars. And that's the same thing. NASA is your tax money. So that's money being taken off of your children's plate, their food, their school supplies, their clothes, their books that they could be reading, the education. That's that whole thing. That not even going into like the homelessness, the poverty that's going on right now. These are the heartstrings that people really, that when you only talk about the science of flat earth, the human story gets lost. Everything gets watered down, and the intention of this entire heliocentric mind control program gets lost in the sauce. And we start getting into this equal battle of flat versus globe, when, like I said in the beginning, the flat earth is not on trial here. The people who are questioning the flat earth, or questioning the heliocentric model, are not on trial here. We are not the ones who are in control of all of this money. We are not the ones who are passing legislature to send drones and airstrikes onto other countries so they can conquer those lands and get that oil. We are not the ones who are making million and billion dollar movie productions to convince people of the universe as it's been sold to us over these last 500 or 5 centuries. We are not the ones here. Like the shift is within the individual to see that it's not so much about the science of the flat earth. When you really boil it all down, when you get down to the meat of it all, the meat of it all is power. The meat of it is control. If you are only focusing on the garnish of NASA CGI, satellite CGI, and all that other stuff. That's the garnish. Now, you could argue it's not the garnish because it helps you go into the spiritual interpretations of the reality and the meaning and purpose of humanity and the relationship to nature and so on and so forth. Yes, on one level, you can go into that space. You can anchor yourself there. But that also goes back to the heartstrings. When you're talking about the spirit, when you're talking about the soul, that's you talking about the heartstring perspective of flat earth, which is the other side of what I'm talking about when I share a lot of my videos. It's very different than the level playing field that people are putting flat earth versus globe when they get into these debates and so on and so forth. It is no level playing field. You are talking about blatant lying ass magicians who have developed this abusive program, this abusive mind control conditioning program, to have people believe themselves into a synthetic universe. And not only that, but defend that and pass that universe down to their next generations. That is some sinister shit that is going on right now. That is some deep, deep, dark magic. And when you get distracted by the checker game of, racial relations and all this other stuff that's coming through the mainstream media, that's when that's another example. If you get distracted by Trump's perspective of white nationalists, the right wing, the alt-right, Bernie Sanders even, white supremacy that's coming through, like the liberals and these aggressive progressives and all that other stuff, all of that is still the fluff. It's the garnish to the original lie, the original abuse of this nation, the original abuse of the original people. That is all the fluff. That's the checker game on top of the chessboard, the three-tiered chessboard for the soul, the mind, and the body, that is designed to keep people from going into the depths of understanding what's really going on here, what's really happening at the root level, the tree root level, not the grassroots. The grassroots are wonderful. You can cut the grass, you can form the grass in however you want, you can even weed, but if you are not talking about the tree roots of this system, then that entire foundation is going to crash. Eventually. You can only cut that grass, you can only replant those grass roots so many times before people start to say, hey, what's going on with these tree roots? What's going on here? And that's what all these distractions are. So when you talk about flat earth science, great, cool. People need to go through the grassroots in order to get to the tree roots. What I'm saying is, for the people who are aware of the information and the perspectives that I'm coming from right now, and you are also aware of the flat earth and so on and so forth, please start questioning yourself. Start challenging yourself to go further and jump ahead of this program that is being manipulated by the mainstream. This is why I say it's so damn crucial to look with a deeper perspective into people who are putting all the eggs in the basket of flat earth going mainstream. That's not to say that it shouldn't go mainstream or we're going to stop it from going mainstream. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's definitely going to go mainstream at some time, because there are no legs to stand on for the heliocentric model. NASA has no legs to stand on. They're completely built on illusion. It's not a matter of if NASA falls, if the globe model falls. It's a matter of when. And the so-called powers that be have so much power invested in the globe model and in NASA. You have to be the most ignorant person in the universe, in the world, to think that they do not have some kind of contingency plan to follow up or co-opt the flat earth once the globe model falls. They are not just going to let $50 million a day get cast to the side. In fact, people are going to be so pissed off once they start hearing that $50 million of your baby food money, of your clothes money, of your rent check is going to these assholes that have been lying for centuries, so they can just keep getting more funding to go to war, more funding to have these fake trips to Mars and all this other stuff. Why do you think SpaceX is out there? SpaceX is just another, it's NASA. It's like NASA 2.0, the cool hip version. Elon Musk with his fancy electric car and his solar towers, and he's gonna make everything solar. That's why he's out there. He's supposed to be the guy that you believe in. He's the likable abuser. He's the commercial abuser. See, he's the one who gives you this, the good cop, bad cop. In a sense, like the bad cop is obviously the government, Big Brother, NASA, and their abusive lies for so long. But the bad cop, or the good cop, is Elon Musk. He's got all these people cheering, and he can even land. He can even land a rocket. He can send a rocket up, and he can land it back here. Look, he's even saving things. He's for the planet. He's not about wasting money. NASA's just about wasting money and just shooting rockets up into space and letting space junk just float around. They represent the corporate version. Elon Musk is like the Bernie Sanders of the universe, of NASA, of the space. Is like, you keep believing in that shit. Keep believing in the system as it's sold to you. And they'll keep selling you your future. Today it's Mars. Yesterday it was the moon. Tomorrow it's going to be Venus, or the moon of Jupiter, the moon of Io, or Europa, or some whatever it is that they're trying to sell you. It's some storyline. They're selling fairy tales. And that's the thing that's happening right now. This is the abusive relationship that I really wanted to share. Excuse me. The abusive relationship storyline that I wanted to share and help people see that the only way you can really get through to the depths of an abusive relationship through the individual is to expand the storyline. You can't just tell somebody, hey, you're in an abusive relationship. He's beating the shit out of you. So you need to get out of there. They know that. They've already processed that and created defense mechanisms to keep that. They're just going to hate you. They're going to hate you because their hate for you actually inflames their love for their abuser. That's one of the main reasons why I don't really get into these debates between flat versus globe, because it's just making them more empowered. And you know, the exception to the rule is people are going to eventually going to look into this information. You're going to get that, but that's the hard route. It's the hard head route, and that's cool. But I don't. We can do so much more than the hard head route, especially if people are like bigger channels are out here sharing deep information. There's more expansion that needs to be made, and that's to emphasize again. That's why I said 2 years of focusing on the checker game of flat versus globe, NASA, CGI, and so on and so forth without expanding the storyline. I got some questions. I'm going to ask some questions, and I'm going to start having my own opinions on how certain people are when they keep, playing that broken record over and over again. Yes, we understand the Earth is not a globe. Yes, we understand that NASA lies and CGI this and CGI that. But that's all the what of what's going on. When are you going to start going into why? How this stuff exists. how these so-called powers that be got into place, how they got into power, how they use the people to protect that power, how they will sell in the next agenda, how it affects us on our families, how it's affected generations, how other mind control conditioning programs like white supremacy, like all of these other systems out here that keep us divided and not really understanding the beauty of who and what we are. There's beauty in our differences. That's the real thing. When I talk about race and white supremacy and so forth, that's where my intentions are coming from. Is to expand the beauty of the focus on the beauty of our differences, not to expand that the differences exist. That's their program. That's the way they have it coded. The information I'm sharing is to help people figure out a way to love themselves, to find yourself. Because if you're just constantly saying, oh, well, I don't want to look at that stuff. In fact, we're all equal. It's all one. We're all that. You're watering yourself down to like a lunchable version of humanity. It's a genetically modified McDonald's drive-through version of understanding who and what you are. There's no understanding, there's no overstanding, and there's really no understanding of what's going on, because you have a prescription drug of we're all one, everything is just the same. That is the zombified mentality that this so-called powers that be that wants you to be in, because that's the next program. That's the next agenda they want to sell in this new age. We're all human. Just think of it from like the alien agenda perspective. If we were faced with an alien, like Reagan said, if we were faced with an alien aggressor or whatever the hell he said, it would unify us. Just think about that. That was said in the 80s. So you don't need an alien. If you don't need an alien agenda or an alien thing to do that, you could use something else. You can use the race agenda instead of the alien agenda to make us all one. This is what I'm seeing with this whole like racial tension stuff that's being played. You see how they just shifted from Russia straight over to race to make it. This is how we are played. People are being played by abusers. In the same way, this, like I explained, and I'll end it on this. The same way I explain people's responses to people talking about the not globe earth or the science that backs up flat earth as opposed to the globe earth. The same way people will change the subject. They won't actually look at the P900 camera bringing that ship or that buoy off of the horizon. They won't see that, oh, well, let me start questioning my reality a little bit more. They'll create some kind of defense mechanism or whatever. They won't see that information. They'll create some kind of deflection and talk about something else. Oh, well, this is this and that's that. The same way people defend that and deflect from that, the same thing happens with this mainstream version of, racial triggering and white supremacy. Anytime I or somebody else brings up white supremacy, the defense mechanism to that, for people who haven't done the work or for people who are subjected to that mind control program, the defense mechanism to that is to not look into the origins of why white supremacy exists. Where did this come from? They won't look at that. They will turn the daggers onto you and say, you are a racist just for talking about it. Something's wrong with you. What? Oh, you're a black superiority now? You're black this and no. I'm speaking of something that actually exists today. And it existed way more in our everyday reality not that long ago by law. Not only does it exist today, it existed heavy duty back in the day. It existed not only so heavy duty back in the day, but it was backed up by the law. Not centuries ago, decades ago. Not that long ago. In fact, apartheid was only addressed in South Africa in the 90s, in like 91 or something like that. The American apartheid, or the United States of American apartheid, was only addressed in the 60s, 1960 something. Like my parents were, like teenagers in that time frame, or in their 20s at that time frame. So there's not many generations that are separating how deep this racial storyline is going. So when I bring up something like that, that's to share the information that there are very definitely some wounds that are existing. There's some remnants that exist, obviously, in people who are still very extremely racist. And it's not even to focus so much on the race when I bring it up. Like I'm saying, that's all the garnish. That's the fluff. When I bring up this information and I share these perspectives, like from Professor Baina Bello, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, John Henrik Clark, all these people who have been studying these perspectives for so long, like the psychological implications that come through the ISIS papers from Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. That's not to share some like black superiority thing because we're talking about melanin. That's to share mostly the point that, yes, this affects generations. It's affecting our generations today. It's not so much about who's privileged and who's not. That stuff exists. But the deeper level, the heartstrings of that storyline is the psyche. The psyche of these 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7-year-old babies who are creating the foundation to their entire life based upon being ugly because they are dark-skinned. Having this idea of beauty from a European features perspective. Having this idea of being right just because of their skin color. Like white people are beautiful and they're right. They're the authority. They're in charge. Look at the politics. Look at Hollywood. Look at your superheroes. That has a psychological meaning and purpose that affects children on the subconscious and unconscious level, and even the conscious level. People hate themselves. This is why I'm saying, and I bring that stuff up. That's like the science of white supremacy in reference to the science of heliocentrism and flat earth. Excuse me. That's the science of it. The real essence, the heartstring essence of why I bring that stuff is how did this program come to be in the first place? Why did this program come to be in the first place? Why was white supremacy invented? Why was white privilege invented? How did all these stuff? Why was heliocentrism invented? Why was NASA invented? How did those powers come to be? To make their money, to make their power, to make the illusion of NASA. How did these powers come to be? To make the stories, to make the science, to make the university systems, to make the heliocentrism program, and make you defend it. How and why did this stuff come to be? How? These are my questions. And you cannot argue a what perspective or a what defense against a how and why question. It's a different league. It won't make any sense. This is why I don't get into these debates and these arguments, because I know from the depths of people's perspectives, hearts, and minds, the segue to get to their depths of perspectives is the questioning the what. First, you have to figure out that something's wrong. Something's wrong. You can't look the other way from racism. You can't look the other way from heliocentrism. And just because, you know, we don't have any power over that. It exists and that's it. So we're just going to, everybody's equal. Everybody's living here on the globe. This is that perspective where people say, what does it matter if the earth is a globe or not? We're still here working. Get out of my face with that simple shit. That is what people not even allowing themselves to challenge the what of this reality. That's why I said I'm not dogging down on anybody that is coming out talking about, you know, the science of flat earth and so on and so forth. I'm merely sharing the perspective that what could easily be co-opted, will easily be co-opted, is the frequency that the mainstream programmers want people to stay in. And the way to break their programming of the what and that checker game is to help people see the depths of how and why. Because once they start challenging the how and why, they will not be susceptible to any more of the illusions that are passed down to the people individually and collectively from the perspective of what. They will no longer be subjected to the magic spells of what, the science of this and the science of that, because they will have removed the belief systems in the individuals who are telling them those deceptions in the first place. So that's pretty much what I had for this video. I just really wanted to go into, you know, the psychological perspectives that I'm coming from, the bridge between the what, that gap between the what storyline and the how and why storyline. There's a gap there. And the only way you can get through that is to first, you know, burn through all of that what. And you got to get through that abusive relationship. You got to get out of that on your own, and you have to be ready for it. And if we start seeing it from these deeper perspectives, it'll help people see it more so and break those chains so we can actually start doing something about it. And then that's the thing. People who are caught up in the what perspective, that's another thing. Then they want to come down on people who are talking about how and why. Well, what are your solutions? Well, what do you think we should do? Like, I'm not in charge of the world. I'm not in charge. You are in charge of yourself. I'm not saying anybody should be in charge of the world or anything. You need to be in charge of yourself. And once you have an entire collective of people who are thinking for themselves, who are no longer defending illusions and no longer thinking with somebody else's mind, with an abuser's mind, once those wounds have been healed, once those moves have been made, that's when these so-called solutions and things that will help us move forward, they will present themselves naturally. They will come to be naturally. But there is so much work that needs to be done beforehand that, you know, people want to either make you look bad by saying, oh, well, you just talk bad about stuff, you don't have any solution. Get out of my face with that shit. There's so much work that needs to be done. And once we start doing that work that's being avoided right now, it's being avoided. People don't want to talk about the origins of white supremacy. They don't want to heal those wounds. They just want to ball it all up and say, we're all one. What? How could you go into so much depth of the flat earth model? How could you go into so much depth of ancient cosmologies, But when it comes to humanity and the intricacies, the complexities of who and what we are, oh, it's just simple. It's just, we're just one. That's it. It blows my mind just to see. If we talk about as above, so below, we're a reflection of the earth and so on and so forth. We're living, the babies of the earth. If the earth is that complex and it has a relationship to the stars and so on and so forth, then we are equally as complex. Our differences have a meaning and a purpose. There's a reason why there's so much differences on the of everything, every living organism here. There's a meaning and a purpose here. There's a reason why. And there's a reason why a lot of these illusions exist. So, yeah, breaking the illusions first will allow us to get to a deeper understanding and overstanding of who and what we are. And I challenge the people who are speaking in reference to flat earth to challenge themselves to step out of the easy box. It's easy. Once you work your muscles up enough to defend the so-called flat earth against the globe heads, once you get to that space, you've done your job. It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to expand. Because that's the only way other people will be able to expand. If you expand to that point and then you only stay there forever, then other people will follow your lead. And then that's why I say it's dangerous, is because if you get up and you work your muscles and you become this weightlifter or this bodybuilder, this prize-winning bodybuilder of a flat earth versus a globe earth, and then you just stay there because you've defeated all of the globe heads with your giant flat earth muscles. When the mainstream agenda co-opts that system, your muscles don't exist anymore. They've stolen your muscles. And now the people who are looking up to you, they will just look up to everybody else and follow the lead of the mainstream storyline because they have nothing else to do. They have nothing else to follow. They will become the authority. And that's the thing. Information is the authority. If you're sharing this information and not expanding it, then you're just creating another authority figurehead. And that's one of the biggest problems with heliocentrism and the so-called powers that be system in the first place. We have to break this system of authority. Why does authority exist? How does authority exist? People don't want to ask that question. They just want to victimize themselves and say, oh, well, authority exists and, what are we going to do about it? What does it matter? Like, come on. How long are you going to tell that story? You either play the victim or the bodybuilder. And a lot of people go back and forth. They go back and forth between that program. But these systems got to go. We have to start challenging ourselves to break these systems and break out of these systems. It might be cool and all, like, we're all great because we have camaraderie in the flat earth community and we can have meetings and do all this other stuff. Great. Wonderful. While you're bowling, while you're throwing mixers and all these conventions, the system is building itself around your lack of going into the how and the why. Because you've prided yourselves in discovering the what, which is exactly where these so-called powers that be want you. They want you to be happy. They want you to be proud that you've broken the system. This is the doggy treat. You've broken the system of what? But you've just stagnated yourself into waiting for them, the so-called powers that be, to give you another system of what? And since you become stagnant in that perspective, you're going to get what you ask for. If you focus on this to go mainstream and you want this to go mainstream and so on and so forth, and like I said, I know it's going to be Good for some people because it'll trigger a lot of people to ask more questions. But at the same time, if the people who are already in place looking at this what program do not challenge themselves to ask how or why this program exists in the first place from a human perspective, then it'll be all for naught. It'll be all for naught because the people who are sitting in that position to make those moves didn't make those moves. Instead, they just converted that energy into pride and ego and some kind of other program that just mirrors the program of the old, instead of pushing further. Then you know what I'm saying. But this video's gone on long enough, so I think I made my point. Thank you for joining me. And thanks again for all the support, for people who like and share and subscribe to this channel. I really appreciate it. It does help. When you do like and share this video, it does help for people seeing this stuff and listening from a different perspective. So thank you again. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.